At this point, given some of the complexities that the consideration of our social being brings to the table, I'd like to just revise briefly some stuff we've learned as we approach human language, which is, of course, in some respects, always necessarily intersubjective. Language occurs between people. Now, we've mentioned that the most important aspects of a human environment are other humans, so the human social world. So what is it? What are the elements of the human social world that stand out for us? Well, two forms of interpersonal relation stand out here. One is the use of the eyes, the gaze, and the other is the use of the voice. Together, these play a huge role in coordinating human activities, and I'm not sure we have yet developed the tools to understand how gaze and voice work together. But we met a very important hypothesis, and only a part of the picture, before, and that was Michael Tomasello's cooperative eye hypothesis. And just to revise that, remember that something happened in the 5 or 6 million years since the last common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees and bonobos. Something that hugely changed the fate of our species and allowed complex societies to emerge. And it may seem like something of a miracle that something should happen in so revolutionary in such a period of time. And when we view biological evolution, we stand right beside the other great apes, chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans. Those are the great apes. Don't confuse monkeys and apes, please. Apes are the ones that we're most closely related to. Monkeys and apes are the major groups within the even larger group of primates that includes lemurs and lorises and tarsiers and lots of animals you've never heard of. But something happened to us, and it didn't happen to the other great apes. Now, conventional approaches to language, based as they are on disciplines such as syntax, have failed to uncover or provide any really important hypothesis as to how this came about. And in 2014, a very important paper by, among others, Mark Hauser and Noam Chomsky, made the following pessimistic statement. Based on the current state of evidence, we submit that the most fundamental questions about the origins and evolution of our linguistic capacity remain as mysterious as ever, with considerable uncertainty about the discovery of either relevant or conclusive evidence that can adjudicate among the many open hypotheses. Now, this, on the one hand, is appropriately humble. They're conducting a form of science that doesn't shed light on an important question, so they admit it. But it may also be unwarranted Mysterianism, because the view of language that has been developed within linguistics focuses upon certain elements like syntax, morphology, phonology, and so on, which we can only really identify after the advent of writing. It's only there that these become separable elements, and writing is very, very recent. The story of human cultural evolution and the origins of language extend over a much longer period of time. And the cooperative eye hypothesis, you remember, noted that one small biological change that did happen in that time may have profound consequences. And this is the development of the white sclera of the eye, which turns the eye into an incredibly important signal. Remember, apes have dark sclera, unlike the ape from Planet of the Apes. And the result of this small biological change is profound, because it means that joint attention, or the situation in which we pay attention to things in the same way, interpret the world in a similar key, recognize the same kinds of saliences, these kinds of situations are greatly promoted by having a clear, demonstrable signal from the eye. And human infants indeed spend an awful lot of their time in social interaction in situations in which joint attention is extremely important. They learn to initiate joint attention by looking at something, and the caretakers do that. They learn to respond to the direction of gaze or pointing of another individual. And then, before they're a year and a half old, they learn to coordinate these initiations and responses with someone else. Notice that the eye here is playing a role much like the hand. That is, if I gaze at something, your attention is drawn there, just as if I pointed at it. So this is a very important hypothesis because it doesn't rely on unlikely genetic miracles that could construct something entirely new in the history of life itself. There's no genetic explanation for the profound changes that language has produced. We are genetically almost identical to chimpanzees, but we have this enormous difference in cognitive skills that we attribute to language. So joint attention becomes a means by which we can collectively parse the world, pick out things, identify topics and discuss them. And it only requires, on this view, one really important structural biological change. So that's very helpful as we go along, and we recognize how little we know, but certainly the hands in pointing, the eyes in indicating direction of attention, and the use of the voice, these are media through which humans coordinate their activities.